Let us begin. Let us begin with the prisoner's dilemma. Two criminals are arrested, thrown in prison separately so they can't communicate, and made an offer. Look, you know why you were there. We know why you were there, and you know that we know why you were there. But we can't quite prove why you were there. Oh, we can prove that you were there, and that's trespassing. That's 2 years in prison on its own. But let's be reasonable here. We both know that you were there to rob the place, and if you will just be reasonable, you don't need to go to prison for that. After all, we know it was really the other guy's doing, and you were just there along for the ride. You were taken along, it's not your fault. So, make sure that we know that. Sign a confession. Make sure the blame is put entirely on the other guy, and you can walk away scot-free. It would be unreasonable for you to not cooperate. If you were to do such an unreasonable thing, well, you were there, and we can throw you in prison for 2 years, so do the reasonable thing. What then would be the reasonable thing? This criminal knows that if he does not cooperate, if he stays silent and tells the police nothing, he'll be given 2 years in prison. So will his friend. If he blames his friend, writes a confession, well, he will get no time in prison. He'll be let off scot-free, free as a bird, and his friend will get 10 years. But he also knows that his friend has been made the same offer. He knows that if his friend betrays him, and he betrays his friend, they'll both get 10 years. Well, that's not great. And if they could communicate with each other, well, easy. Just agree to not betray one another, agree to just stick it out, and each receive the 2 years for the minor sentence, and so be it. But they can't communicate. As a collective, it would be preferable for them to agree to not talk, get the 2 years each, but individually, well, that niggle begins to work. What if he betrays me? Well, I need to betray him first, but then we'll both go down for 10 years. But if he's going to betray me anyway, I'm going to get 10 years one way or another, so why not at least take the chance that I can get off scot-free and he goes for 10 years? But would he betray me? And so you begin to think. What is the culmination of this situation? Well, it's a fun game to play with a friend. You can even play it with an AI these days. However, it has an awful lot of real-world applications. Like what, you may ask? Real police initiatives don't work quite that way. No, but some things do. Let's give another example. In the ancient world, two tribes meet. Each knows that it has some fighters. The other people also have some fighters. And it would be possible for us to go and attack them and take their stuff. We're close enough that they wouldn't be able to run away. If they did, they'd have to leave all their stuff behind, and we've won already. So, if we choose to fight, they have to fight. But they could also attack us. And maybe there's an advantage to them for striking first. But alternatively, there's another option. There's surely a path to collaboration here. We could talk, get to know each other. There are a lot of them, a lot of us. Actually, we saw a mammoth a little while back, and there weren't enough of us to take that thing down. But maybe if we join up with them, yeah, there could be just about enough. And we have a guy who really knows about mammoths. He knows everything about mammoths. So he could really do a number on that thing if he had the right number of people with him. Yeah, this could work well. And also, we suspect that they have someone with them who knows how to use herbs for healing. We could really use that sort of information. So, we could work together. We could even unify into one big tribe, work together to take down mammoths, learn about herbalism. It would be great. But what if they want to take our stuff? What if they want to attack us and steal from us? We wouldn't be able to run away. We'd have to leave our stuff behind, and then we'd be in a terrible situation. No. If they attack us, we'd have to stand and fight. But that might not be successful. They might win. We should gain any advantage we could gain in that situation. One advantage might be to strike first. If we attack them before they attack us, they won't be ready. We'll be in the better position. And they know this. They know what we know. They know that if they strike first, they'll be in a better position. But if we strike first, we'll be in a better position, so they'll want to strike first. And so on and so forth. And the niggle begins to niggle. What's the result in this situation? Peaceful cooperation? Or violence? Well, it could be one, it could be the other. History has examples of both. But all too often, the two will come to blows. And what will be the result of this fighting? Who will win? It doesn't matter. Both will lose. Whichever side wins, whichever side either drives off the other one, or kills all of the other one after a long, drawn-out fight, well, they'll lose some members. A few of their fighters will be killed, some will be injured, and maybe some non-replaceable resources will be lost. Maybe your guy who knows all about mammoths, well, unfortunately he died in the fighting. Yeah, that's what happens of getting an arrow to the head. By the way, do we know how to make arrows? Oh, I guess that was another thing they could have taught us. Oh well. And so, no mammoth on the table tonight. But we did take some salted pork at least. Well, so be it. We lost a couple of people, a couple of our people were injured, and we got some food. Maybe we ended up around where we started off. But them, oh, they're done for. They've lost all their food, we killed some of their people, we killed that old woman who knew about herbalism. Yeah, she wouldn't talk, too bad. Well, I guess they're done for. We couldn't kill them all, but we don't need to. Hunger will do that to them. So be it. Bad situation for them, and for us, it could be better. Maybe we've turned out ahead, maybe we didn't take many casualties, but we still lost something. And we didn't gain any of the things we could have gained if we'd worked together with them. If it was possible for these two groups to communicate, to think rationally about their situation, to think what would be optimal for us all, what would be optimal for us, but also for them, they would come to the same conclusion. What is optimal is to work together, even to unify, to collaborate, to share their strengths and balance out one another's weaknesses. There is no reason why these two groups should not collaborate, except that niggle has begun to niggle. Each one knows that the other one could strike first and gain an advantage, and each one knows that the other one knows that each one could strike first and gain an advantage, and each one, and so on and so forth. And with that thinking comes the fact that eventually, in many cases, one will think, well, if we don't do it, they will, let's fight. At that point, many gains that cannot be replicated have been lost. Some current advantages that cannot be replicated may be lost, and some replaceable advantages will also be lost, and maybe a great many if you lose the fight. Since, even with an advantage, there's no guarantee of victory, and you could have avoided it altogether. Why then does the rational thing not happen? Why do these people not just look at the situation and think, well, we should act rationally, we can do what's optimal, we can work together and we can gain all these advantages and we can be in a better situation? Why do they not think that? Because they are thinking rationally. That's the problem. It's not their rationality which is at fault, it's their viewpoint. They aren't thinking, how can we optimize the advantage for ourselves and themselves? They're thinking, how can we optimize the advantage for ourselves? Ironically, if they were only able to think in a way which didn't involve their own self-interest, if they were only able to think to themselves, well, what is best, not for us, but for us and them unitedly, what is best for everyone, for the maximum number of people, if they were only able to think that, well then, they would come to the optimal conclusion. And there would be none of this niggling, what if they strike first, and what if they think that we're going to strike first, and so we need to, and so on and so forth. There'd be none of that. Because each one would know that the other one would be thinking optimally. Neither side would be the first one to strike, since each side would know that it is optimal to not strike first. Neither side would consider a first strike. Each side would only consider collaboration, and by abnegating their own self-interest, abnegating that fear that they might be struck, everyone would work out in the best possible end. Everyone would gain the most. Both groups would gain the most, and each individual within each group would gain the most. Is this not, therefore, the optimal solution? Of course it is. But it doesn't always come about. Fear of losing out one's own self-interest will often motivate the loss of that interest, whereas abnegating the self-interest, looking to the greater interest, the communal interest, the interest of the greatest number, will ensure, or at least increase the likelihood of gaining, interest for oneself. It is a bitter irony. Let us consider another option. Our tribe has grown quite large. We now number 250. In fact, we're the largest tribe we've ever seen. But right now that's not a good thing. You see, a famine has hit the land. Not many animals to be caught these days. And the animals we can catch, there's not much meat on them. It's a pity. In fact, things are going to get real bad real soon. We figured out how to salt meat a little while ago. We have some stores. But we think that by the time this famine ends, we're only going to have enough food to feed 200 people. And there are 250 of us. So 50 people are not going to get enough to eat. They're dead. It's a sad reality, but they're not going to live. and they're going to know this. Anyone can go look at the stockpile. Everyone knows how much we have, and we all know how much food we're bringing in. Assuming nothing else gets worse, only 200 of us are going to live through this. Everyone's asking the question, therefore, which 200? Well, the optimal thing to do would be to say, well, it's a harsh reality, but there are 200 of us who are most efficient, most useful. We need to focus on bringing in food. We need to focus on that which is optimal, and what is optimal is to ensure the survival of the greatest number. The greatest number of people are useful to us. They can hunt more, bring in more, so better that we feed as many as we can, and thus bring in as much food as we can, and look to the future seasons where hopefully we'll have more food to eat. Therefore, all of you who are less useful, who are less efficient, you who cannot hunt as well, you who serve no purpose at all, unfortunately, yeah, we're going to send you on a long journey. Over there, over the horizon, there's another land. We've never been there. We hear stories that it's full of very dangerous animals, and we certainly couldn't afford to make the trip now. If we all went, certainly, most of us wouldn't make it. Far more than 50 would die. As for you, unfortunately most of you are probably going to die on the trip. Maybe, just maybe, however, a few of you will make it, and once you're there, maybe some of those dangerous animals can be hunted. It's a long shot, but it might just work. You have a chance, at least. That's the optimal solution. Pick the 50 least efficient people, the 50 people who still need to eat as much as everyone else, but who are least contributing to their society, and send them away. Send them on a rather improbable, but just possible, maybe, slightly, there's a chance, hope of finding a solution for them, at least, if not for the greater number. That alleviates the burden on the rest of the tribe, and the remaining 200 can be fed. Harsh, but necessary. The 200 who are left will survive, and the 50 who are sent, well, maybe, just maybe, they'll succeed, and at least some of them will also survive. What's the alternative? Well, we could kill the 50. That's not great, like, they won't have any chance of survival, but also, if we try to kill them, what if they fight back? Well then, maybe more than 50 people will die. There's enough food for 200, but if 200 side against 50, the 50 will surely kill some of the 200, and some of those 200 are not fighters. So, yeah, it's not great. Some of us will die, eventually all of them will die, but we'll lose more than 50 people, and there's no hope of them surviving. So, what do we do? Bad situation. Preferable to just send them on a long journey, but they don't want to go. They know that their odds of survival are low. Not zero, but low. And they have spears. Some of them at least, and others have fashioned rocks and clubs for themselves. This isn't looking good. We have a fight on our hands. It's a real pity. We don't have enough food, but we have enough to feed 200, and they might survive if they journey. But because of this fighting, we're going to lose more than 50, and, well, it's a bad situation, but we know about burning, and they know about burning. Each of us is probably going to try to burn the other person's side of the village down, and maybe the fire will spread, and maybe some people who otherwise wouldn't be hurt at all, who definitely are useful, who everyone wants to survive, like that woman who knows about circling and herbalism and how to mend broken bones, all of those things, well, maybe she'll be injured or killed. Maybe some of her herbs will be destroyed. Maybe that really nice bone flute that we could sell if we ever find another tribe, maybe that will be destroyed. This isn't a good situation. But they need to go, and they're not going to go, so they're going to fight. More will die. What a pity, what a pity. If only, in this situation, everyone could look at the situation rationally. If only some chieftain might think, all these people could look at things rationally. Yes, some of us are going to need to go hungry, some of us are going to suffer, but why increase that suffering? Why not just look at things rationally and say to yourself, well, we should minimize suffering. We should ensure that the greatest number possible have as much food as they need. We should rationally consider the situation and see that peacefully heading off on this improbable journey, that's the best choice, the least bad choice. But the problem is that each person, from their own perspective, is looking at the situation rationally. A lack of rationality isn't the problem until you're looking at the individual, until you're looking at things from the point of view of the individual. Then, the lack of rationality is rather the solution. The rationality is the problem. The rationality is what motivates the person to say, well, I'm almost certainly not going to survive this journey all the way over there, and if I'm not going to survive that, alternatively, I could stick around and fight, and maybe we'll win. We probably won't, but maybe we will. It's 50 against 200, but hey, worse things have happened, and more improbable odds have been successful. in some cases, smaller numbers have defeated greater numbers. It could happen, and our chances are surely better than if we head off on this journey. So, we stand and fight. And if that means that some of them get injured, some of them get killed, if that means that some non-replaceable resources are destroyed, bad, but at least I'm still alive. At least I have my life, if nothing else. So, rationality is rather the problem. From each individual's perspective, among that 50, they know that their odds lie better with standing and fighting than with heading off and probably dying on the way. So, what are they going to do? They'll stand and fight. They'll do the least optimal thing. They'll do the irrational thing because they're being rational. Is there an alternative? Is there a way around this? Yes. What if those 50 thought not, oh dear, I don't have enough to eat, but, oh dear, the tribe doesn't have enough to eat? What if in fact all 250 thought not, oh dear, I don't have enough to eat, but, oh dear, the tribe doesn't have enough to eat? Could we be certain that in that tribe there is not anyone who is eating rather more than they need to? Can we be certain that Hetman, the chief, some of the shamans, are not perhaps getting more food than they need? Oh, the old woman doesn't hunt, but she certainly needs her food. After all, herbalism is vital, and she's good for us in the long run. Besides, we know that next time we meet another tribe, whenever that might be, she'll be able to teach their skills to them, and they'll give us something in return. We have that as an advantage. No, she's certainly going to stay. But is the chieftain eating more than he needs to? Are the shamans? Well, if they could cut their diet a little, if they could take only what they need rather than what they want, maybe food could be found for one or two more people. Good, but still doesn't resolve the underlying problem. What if, however, each of these people thought, the tribe doesn't have enough to eat. I need to do whatever is necessary to ensure the tribe has enough to eat. I need to do whatever is necessary to ensure that as many people as possible have enough to eat. And if that means that I, as the least efficient hunter, need to be sent off on a long journey in order to maybe, probably not, find some extra food, and probably die on the way, and if I don't, maybe die when I get there, so be it. At least 200 of our 250 will survive, and maybe a few extra will. If everyone could think that, if everyone could know that everyone could think that, if everyone could know that everyone completely disregarded their own self-interest and looked only to the interest of the community as a whole, what would be the result? The result would be more people would survive than if each person looks to their individual self-interest. And if you, as an individual, were thrown into that situation, and you didn't know who you were going to be, which would you prefer? That each person is looking out for their own self-interest, or each person is looking out for the general interest? You, if you can do math, would pick everyone looking out for the general interest. If everyone looks out for their self-interest, more than 50 are going to die. If everyone is looking out for the general interest and not their self-interest, only 50, and maybe, just maybe, fewer than 50 are going to die. Mathematically, therefore, if you don't know which person you're going to be in this situation, you will pick the situation where everyone is thinking in the collective interest. And yet, when these situations play out in real life, that's not how things go. Such self-sacrifice, such self-abnegation is not common. It's in fact vanishingly rare. Oh, there are examples that can be pointed to, but not many. In your own life, think if you know 250 people, if you can imagine 250 people, perhaps you know 250 Facebook friends. If such a situation were to play out, how do you think it would go? Of course, everyone would look to their own self-interest, and some people would eat rather more than they need to. Those who are at the top, those who are most valued, would get more than they strictly need, more than 50 would be at risk of starvation, and the 50 would stand and fight, more than 50 would die. Everyone would end up worse. Well, is there a solution to this? Yes, there is. But it's rather out of the box.